All right. Now, paper currency is minted on the basis uh, of some backing or a standard. Uh, the standard is mostly gold, right? So, uh,
But most of the currencies now are off the gold standard. No? Now they're
so it
fiat.
has to be based on something of value.
Yeah, real tangible.
You understand? So, we'll take gold as an example. So, uh, when it states on the note that I promise to pay so and so, means if a person submits a note, 10 rupee note or a 1 rupee note to the Reserve Bank, he has to get that equivalent amount of gold.
So who decides the price of gold and the price?
That is decided by the RBI
Okay.
and the relevant authorities.
Okay.
Okay? And on the basis that that determines the value of your paper currency. If that is not there, the paper currency can become worthless at any time. So, if you go with your paper currency, 1 rupee or 10 rupee note,
So
to the Reserve Bank and present it over the counter, you must get that equivalent back in gold. You understand? At any time. The Reserve Bank, the government must be willing to pay the equivalent amount in gold.
So, but now I want to have a question. Now, if the amount of people who are willing to trade in the rupee, does that affect the price of gold?
Yes. No, the price of value of gold is affected by many factors.
Including the amount of people who are willing to trade in the rupee.
Now, as the currency is off the gold standard,
Ah,
you understand? Therefore, if debt and deficit exceeds a certain limit, then uh, the currency value drops tremendously, and the entire economy is affected.
so
That is, if you keep minting,
okay.
if you keep on minting paper currency,
Like Zimbabwe.
you understand, without any backup.
Wow, what happened in Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe, why is it so much inflated the currency?
Because they are printing notes without any backup, so it becomes worthless, no? Like, for example, they print, say, 1,000 10 rupee notes
Yeah.
with a backup of that much amount of gold.
Okay.
You understand? Now, if there is that much amount of gold, and if they want to print 100,000 10 rupee notes, they have to increase the amount of gold. If they don't increase that amount of gold, means the value of that 10 rupees is gone.
So the citizens of Zimbabwe won't be able
So,
to go into the international market and buy anything valuable.
correct. You understand? As a result of which, yesterday, now for instance,
In your opinion, who should manage public debt? The RBI or the
public debt,
finance
the
ministry?
trouble is, you see, with where the politicians are concerned, they the public debt goes up because the politicians, to remain in power, they deliver, they make promises that they cannot fulfill. So, as a result of which, uh, they subsidize various things, the subsidies beyond particular limit, the subsidies and the freebies, as they call them. You understand? Without any return.
So long
That is when there are three people, like
short term.
for short term gain,
Okay.
which affects
The
long term, which affects the long
So
term.
it will echo.
You understand?
Subsequently.
Subsequently,
And then it will be in deeper trouble.
subsequently, they have to borrow more to keep up
Okay.
because they are in so much of debt. You understand? They have to borrow, they fall into a vicious circle. That is, they have to borrow more just to repay the interest on that debt. Or they have to print.
Okay, so everyone pays for that because if inflation rises, all the citizens lose their stake,
Yeah.
their savings in effect. So if I had to save,
So you understand. So you see now the problem with minting currency.
In your opinion, RBI has performed well in our independent history.
RBI always performs well. The trouble is, it is the politicians that do not allow it or uh, have the final say. So, as a result of which, whatever good that the RBI can do, you understand, is negated or neutralized.
Do you have any instances?
Except if where there's a great degree of autonomy,
But
like
then,
in the US.
Yeah, but then the problem is the
Now,
if we-
RBI sets interest rates.
But if the Federal Reserve, like the US, becomes too powerful, then the government will become too important. That's a capitalist society now. So that means the Federal Reserve has more power. In effect, sometimes it has more power than the government. If it were to do, say, if it were to do something today, the whole world gets affected, and then the government's policy decisions, you know, they are subject to what the Fed does. Like suppose Fed were to take a decision today, tomorrow the government, the repercussions of that decision will put more burden on the government politicians.
The Fed does not have absolute authority.
So how does it? How
Means the government can overrule.
this U.S. government can overrule their decisions?
No. You see, there is a provision for the government to overrule.
How fast?
Like
can
president has the power. The American president has the power of veto. You understand? So, in certain situations, under certain circumstances, the Fed is not all powerful,
Okay.
right? Even the president himself is subject to checks and balances. So, there will be some restraining factors, some checks and balances on the Fed itself. But if left to themselves, to the economists, then there will be a huge number who are left out, because for the simple reason is that worldly wealth is not divine wealth, which is infinite. Worldly wealth is limited.
So you mean to say? the
Therefore,
people-
not everybody can have any amount.
So the people who have
So
more money will have more influence in the decision making.
More.
If it is like pure capitalist.
Pure capitalism, the rich become richer and the poor become poorer, because the rich will automatically take the greater share of the cake.
And more, they will have more influence in decision making.
They'll have more influence in decision making. So that is why the system of taxation is not a right equation, as Jesus himself pointed out.
No.
That
no speaking about him. We'll speak about
the system
something.
of taxation,
But that's very interesting. I read about something. Someone asked him. Someone asked Jesus that why should we pay taxes? And the intellectuals of the time, the wait, let me.
Peter
frame-
asked him
No,
why-
no, don't use name. We just try to frame this properly. Someone asked him, why should we pay taxes? Okay, if we pay taxes to Rome,
is it right to pay taxes or not?
yeah. So then what he replied was very interesting, and he took the coin and he said, whose face is on it?
Caesar's.
Yeah, Caesar's face is on
So
it.
he said, pay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Yeah.
For the simple reason is that now, since the country is under Roman domination, therefore it is
you're
a
subject to Roman rule.
subject to Roman rule, authority. You understand?
So Caesar is giving you power to trade with the whatever.
According to God's law,
Okay, whatever. Okay, to divine law.
according to, if God was sitting over there, then the situation is completely different. The citizens of a country cannot be taxed, only the foreigners.
Huh?
So,
Why? What's the distinction between the citizens
because
and
we are doing the exact opposite of what should be,
in the sense?
in the sense that the woman is less important than the man, when the woman is more important than the man in reality.
Okay.
For the simple reason is the woman is the soul of man,
Okay. Wait. We are going somewhere else.
and the soul is the most important part of a man.
So,
What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and suffers the loss of his own soul?
okay, we are getting more and more religious.
So we are doing the exact opposite of what should be.
So, in the sense, how, how should we tax?
The government must borrow money from the people, the same way it borrows money from other countries and other financial institutions.
So, if the government fails to perform, then it
Or they can have a bare minimum of taxation, say 10%, which is paid by everyone. The billionaire, the millionaire, the billionaire secretary, the civil servant,
So, you mean to say that
the army general.
this progressive taxation should not be there; it should be flat.
One, and the rest. Otherwise, ideally speaking, there should be no taxation.
So, there should be only taxation on transactions.
On tell the people, you've got money, we are willing to borrow from you at this rate of interest, and with a bond, we'll give you a bond with a promise to repay it after 5.
Suppose they fail
7
to,
years.
They fail to execute good policy. Then what happens to the bond? There's inflation. No? Our money will lose value if we lend our money to the government and the government fails to execute properly with that money. The money will lose value.
But
Then-
you're free to lend or not to lend.
Okay, exactly. So you're free to be part of the.
So the government will be careful that you get your money back at interest. How does a bank return a fixed deposit at
So you mean to
interest?
say the government should just be
Like a bank and a fixed deposit.
So you mean to say that the government should be just another.
Look,
player?
you're a billionaire, okay?
Okay.
Government, I'm the finance minister. I'll come and tell you, look, Julian,
But what if someone doesn't have the best interest of the country at heart? He's a billionaire. He wishes to.
You're mistaken. He will automatically, this is the government talking.
No,
He will
if
automatically
he-
come
if he-
running.
No. If he were to invest somewhere else, if he were to exchange, if he were to go to the international market and invest his savings in a basket currency, like to save himself against bad events in the future or something, he would rather invest in some other country's bonds than his own country. Then, in that scenario, how do you tax the person who is staying on your soil?
One is there's a factor of risk. Secondly, the government can furnish some sort of collateral.
What is the collateral?
Means in order to enhance
Trust.
investor trust and confidence.
What kind of collateral? Stake in the.
When you go to a bank to take a loan, you have to furnish collateral, no?
So what?
Your
collateral-
house.
But so you mean
Same
to say
way.
that infrastructure, there should be ownership of the infrastructure should be of the investor. If
The government can furnish. After all, the government owns the
but-
country.
no, but the problem is
They can give them
So
anything.
that's equivalent to private investment, not disinvestment.
No, you're forgetting one important point here. When you're being taxed, you lose everything.
So the tax is subjective to who, when, where, what. You mean to say it should not be subjective. It should be instead of viewing the citizen as a subject, he should be viewed as a partner.
You see, if you're willing to lend money to the government, they'll give you any number of facilities.
No, but if they are a poor investment, if you don't see the
Julian, you're forgetting one important point here.
if you don't view the government as a good business entity, then what happens?
GE pays not a dime, not a penny of tax to the US government.
Okay.
That is what I'm trying to tell you. There are certain things over here when Leo wanted to sell his flat.
Don't take names.
You understand?
Okay, say XYZ.
In Bombay, you understand? They'll come they'll come and say, okay, you want to sell your flat for say 50 lakhs. 40 lakhs in black, only 10 lakhs.
No, but no. This is all speculation, please. No black, white. No.
You understand? So the thing is, there is never a proper.
Okay. Let's assume XYZ country. We won't assume anything. Just give an example of how housing is transaction for housing. Just give an example. Don't take anything specific.
Transaction
Don't
for
say
housing.
anything
Okay.
specific with respect to country or the people who are like transacting.
General.
So you see, when you're selling a house, the seller will specify a certain percentage unaccounted and a certain percentage by check, which is accountable and taxable, and a certain percentage unaccounted for
With
Because-
respect to the
with respect to the sale of the house,
with respect to the sale of the house and the government.
so that they don't pay tax to the
Okay,
government.
and the government who has power over that particular boundary, geographical location.
Over that geographical location.
Okay, then.
Okay. So the government has lost that money. Right?
Yeah. So
Now instead of that,
in effect, the people who are transacting don't have
so therefore taxation is not.
don't have faith in the government's ability
So
to,
one
to
is
manage the debt investment, public debt investment, public debt and public investment. So those transaction entities don't have faith in the government. You mean to say their own elected government?
Don't have faith in the government in the sense, one is that even a bank robber is not willing to part with his money, though he's robbed that money, let alone a person's own hard-earned money or has earning his money legally, or a proper business transaction. Nobody is willing to part with his money.
So how in your
So that means whatever government has to take has to be kept to the bare minimum. And apart from that, people have to be induced in some measure.
So how do you increase faith in the
You tell them,
government?
you lend the money to us, we'll pay it back to you at interest.
So you mean to say this rate of
Make that,
this rate of investment, this rate of interest?
let the
Who
government,
gets to fix
let the
that?
government tell you, instead of taking 30% of your income,
Yeah.
you only give me 10%. That's gone. The rest 20%, you lend it to me, you keep it as a fixed deposit with me, and
who-
after 7 years I'll give it back to you at interest.
Who decides the rate of interest? That particular
Government.
So in effect, you're taking some powers from the Reserve Bank and giving it to the government to manage public debt.
Government means Reserve Bank will fix the rate of interest.
Of
no?
public
They are
debt
there
also.
for that.
No, of public debt also.
Lending rate, what you call.
No, see, this is government. Government is taking money from the people. It's not Reserve
Government
Bank is not
bonds.
fixing the interest rate of general interest rate.
Government and Reserve Bank will
No,
get
but these
together.
are two different interest rates. Nah. This interest rate,
Government bonds.
the interest rates of this public investment. If the government fixes, the government and RBI will be in. Say for example, the government in fact becomes a bank.
Who fixes the interest?
The government gets, in effect, enters the banking sector.
Something like that.
Okay. So how do you, so you mean to say how well the government, performs
Now
in
it's up to
public
them.
debt will give an indicator of the health of the government.
Yeah, health, all sorts of things.
So if you compare a
Competency.
public bank and the government, how it's managing.
What did who's this person comment on television?
Don't say the name. Just
Somebody
say-
commented
say-
regarding the Greek government.
Okay.
a Nobel, an economist who was a Nobel laureate, commented on the Greek government, saying that I underestimated the competency of the Greek government, as a result of which the economy is in a mess.
I don't.
I underestimated the competency.
You mean to say the
Greek
Greek
means
government?
handled the economy very badly.
No, overestimated. You mean to say?
Yeah, he thought they would handle it well. They would do a good job.
See, you mean to say he overestimated the competency?
Overestimated the competency of the Greek government.
I'm not following that particular thing. What
They didn't keep their promise, what you meant.
Not promise their ability to handle finances, yeah, intelligently, effectively.
Is it for the first bailout? We're talking Greek.
Yeah, they
Germany.
just like, for example, like a bank giving out bad loans here.
Intentionally.
So you just distribute money, make promises left, right, and center. You understand? And in the case of Greece, the public sector was hugely bloated. Like there were 3 people doing one man's job, as a result of which the returns diminished accordingly. You understand?
So you mean to say service was overvalued? The g- public officers, whatever.
So everything was overvalued.
So you mean to in some other parts of the world, the same job was
Means they reached a
fetching
point
less
where
money.
they could not repay.
They invested
and-
poorly. You mean to say
They handled it poorly. They handled everything very poorly. Investments.
Now, in recent news, there's a
Bailout.
in recent news there's a proposition that a monetary policy committee will be constituted. It will have 4 members appointed by government, basically, and the rest of the committee, maybe 3, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure, will be from the Reserve Bank of India. And the Reserve Bank of India itself is appointed by the government, no? The
Governor.
Chairman.
governor. So you mean when deciding interest rates, that 7-member committee will deliberate. In your opinion, is this bad, good?
It's good.
It's good. But if the government has too much influence in the Reserve Bank, do you not
Because
think, do you
it
not think that it will undermine the Reserve Bank's autonomy?
but is the Reserve Bank of
The-
India
it's like
autonomous?
Power will be, yeah, it is autonomous in the fact that how it conducts itself is not subject to the government. But if in the event that it performs, if it goes haywire, the government can always send all the government officials off and appoint new ones. But it cannot tell them how to do it,
In India,
do their job.
the degree of autonomy varies from country to country. So in a country like
but
India,
power drain from the RBI.
in a country like India, the Reserve Bank, the CBI, is not totally autonomous. Their autonomy is limited. Whereas the Supreme Court has a larger degree of autonomy. Whereas the Reserve Bank of the USA has much greater autonomy than the Reserve Bank of India.
Do you think that's good or bad? In a capitalist society, ours is not pure
It is
capitalism.
good, but there is nothing. Good and bad depends on the checks and balances.
Okay.
Purely on the checks and if the checks and balances are good,
What I do with my hands is
You understand?
how it determines.
if the checks and balances are not good, not bad, then there is a lot of corruption, money will disappear, there will be a lot of bad decisions,
So, in the fact that if there is this 4 members,
mismanagement.
if there are 4 members from the government, and if their competency is not at par with those at the RBI, do you not think that the RBI will become less
Now, you see what has happened. There are 4 members from the government, 1 from the RBI.
No, 3.
So, 3 from the RBI.
Yeah, and they might have a veto power. Governor might have a veto power.
What? RBI governor?
Or a extra vote in event of a tie.
No, you're saying 4 and 3.
Yeah, 4 from the now. What's the recent proposal is that 4 will be appointed from the will from the government finance ministry, and means and 3 will be appointed by the RBI.
So, the government will have the final say.
Yeah, do you not think that this is bad? This is too much of power concentration, like power leaching towards.
Yes, that means it should be, the committee should have an equal, you should have,
Right now,
the committee should consist of 5 members, and the final decision be taken by vote.
The interest rates. But if it is like that way, do you not think the long term policy, monetary policy, will be uncertain? Because today 3 members might decide on one particular interest rate, tomorrow 2 members might decide on another, and then if you have one, like for example, if a football team is coached by 2-3 people and then they are in disagreement, then you won't have stability. You won't.
There'll be confusion.
It
Yeah,
has to work as a team.
because the interest rate has to have a long-term goal, no? If there is a certain vision, and if that vision were to be influenced,
Is only for the short time. In the politics of today, there is no country that has a long-term vision. All decisions are made for the short. The vision is all for the short term only.
you mean to say the half-life of policy?
As a result of which, in the long term, the country suffers, because the decisions are made to assuage a certain number of people for a particular time. Whereas the same, like for example,
No, the governor mentioned saying that if this were to be carried out, it would become a paper tiger, the Reserve Bank. I read. I'm not sure whether he said it or it was said or someone attributed it to him or.
that is right. The thing is, you see, when the government, every government has a tendency to keep as much power as possible with it and resist delegating authority. So,
Is it bad in the long term?
it is bad in the long term.
They should have confidence in their own appointees, no? The government.
Because the factors, because of the desire to cling to power and authority is overwhelming. And the factor of ego, because to concede something, anything, to anyone else is very difficult in a position of power. That is why for a tyrant, a dictator, retreating on the battlefront becomes a very difficult decision, because it is a loss of face. His ego suffers.
So you mean to say
If he has to retreat, it's a loss of face for the general or for the tyrant or dictator. So it becomes very difficult for a dictator or a tyrant to order a tactical retreat
in World
on
War
the
II,
battle.
in World War II,
That's how Hitler lost. No?
in World War II, the USA bombed Japan. They didn't need to bomb Japan. Japan had almost given up.
That atom bomb was meant for Berlin, but at the last minute, the atom bomb was meant for Berlin.
They surrendered like that.
So
But,
But
do you think that is vanity, on the part of USA to show the world that we are what we are capable of and we are not hesitant to do it?
Dollars wouldn't surrender.
No.
And one of the bombs was not tested. The one of see, I was going through some stuff, and I was with the in the atom bomb there are two types. In the fission mechanism there are two types. One of the type you have something that impinges another pipe. Say for example pipe. There's a hollow pipe, and then they send another uh, fissile capsule or something, or fissile material. This is critical mass. When uranium is enriched towards critical mass, that is it has certain percentage of 238 or 235 or whatever. When two of those things hit each other, the heat at that particular instant is enough to set in motion fissile reaction. So the mechanism to set that in motion, at that point of time there were two. One was when you just, by kinetic energy, you just take certain one mass and you put a cup, say for example like a cavity, and you send that mass into the cavity with certain velocity, and it will, because of that the fissile reaction will start. But this was tested, okay, and then the output, what would be the output of the explosion. But there was another model wherein you would have a hollow sphere and you would execute controlled implosion of that sphere of fissile material which is enriched to the critical
you have
mass.
detonators.
Critical enrichment, sorry.
Detonators.
Yeah, and when it implodes, the heat will be enough to set in motion fissile reaction. Now this particular model was not tested in the real world. They actually tested it the day of the bombing. Do you not think that the motive of USA at that point of time was
Selfish.
I don't know, was inhumane?
Use them as a test.
Yeah, you use the right word. The motive, inhumane. That on the surface it seems like that they were callous. If that was the case, then it would be a callous on the part of
Some
the
people
USA.
say that they wanted to show Russia what they can do, and in the post-war era, they wanted.
No, that is bunkum, as the Irish
Japan wouldn't
say.
surrender.
No, no,
So
no.
Berlin
Not
surrendered.
Japan, sorry, Russia.
Russia, it was not a case of arrogance or not to show anyone or not to
Cold
show
War
off.
started because of
You
Berlin.
understand? That's a lot of bunkum.
The Cold War
The
started
reason,
because of Berlin.
the reason they dropped the atom bomb was to bring the war to an end.
Hmm.
But they could have done it other means. No?
No, Japan.
Japan
was very advanced.
was cornered. Why do you drop two atom bombs? That too.
A fanatical country like Japan,
But they were cornered from all the. Why do you drop an atom bomb? That would
Because
have repercussions for years to come.
if the atom bomb was not dropped and other means adopted, it would entail a lot of loss of life
To whom? To the
to
US?
the
But-
to the allies, Americans, British, whatever.
So they valued. But 20 years, 30 years, 40 years hence, people are still suffering there because of what happened.
The most important factor was when they see a device like an atom bomb, it would automatically inspire fear, terror.
So you mean to say that was a
You understand?
means of terror
Yes.
to
It was
achieve
a,
political gain, political goals.
to achieve the goal of ending the war.
Which
There
is
was
a
no.
political one. That's the
Why?
definition
Why
of
is
ter-
it
That's the
political?
definition of terrorism.
What? It's not terrorism here.
To use
There's a
fear-
war in progress. Yeah. How do you bring it to an end?
But
To subdue the enemy.
when was this Geneva thing after the war?
It is
Before
UN
the
now.
war.
Before the war.
UN?
So
After World War One, Geneva Convention.
yeah. So Geneva Convention had no idea about atom bombs and when they were constituting the Geneva Convention. So how do you subject a thing such as an atom bomb under the rules? How do you quantify something, a means of destruction as the atom bomb, when the committee of how do you classify it under the Geneva Convention?
No, Geneva. This didn't come under the Geneva Convention
How can-
because it's a weapon of war.
No, but even in weapon of war like napalm and your chemical agents, they
The
are
Germans used chemical
no mustard gas and all came under the Geneva Convention.
after that.
No, after World War One. So mustard gas was used in World War One, na?
Yeah, but the
So
Geneva Convention came after that.
so now, how do you classify a means of destruction such as the atom bomb under rules that had no idea that such a thing could exist? It's terror, no? What else is it? Now, the Geneva Convention, with whatever, however good intentions you may have at the Geneva Convention to ensure that something like this never happens again, like mustard gas or chemical agents. Or
But
all
then
those
who
things.
knew that there'd be mustard gas and chlorine?
So it under moral implications, when you know that the atom bomb and you know that implosion method, you don't know what it will do when you drop it on a city. Don't you think that is terror? That's a means of that is terror in effect. It's nothing else. They didn't even test that form of fissile.
Terror can be anything, yeah. Like, for instance,
No.
a rat can inspire terror in a woman if she's mortally afraid, if they have a phobia of something.
This is political terror. Terror to achieve political end. That is that's okay. That's fight and flee response. That mammals have that, no? That you perceive a threat.
You're mixing up between politics and.
So no. Terror is defined in
What
such.
he's saying is, hello. What he's saying is, atom was misused. What he means.
No, it wasn't misused.
I'm not pronouncing judgment here. I'm just trying to understand.
It was used as a means of terror. But these fanatics had to.
Now,
have
say for example, you come up with a fantastic weapon. Okay, no one knows in the world. Now, how do you judge whether you use it or you don't use it?
If you come up with a weapon, you use it.
Hello.
If the rules, according to the rules, like for example, if I come up with a fantastic way of using mustard gas and sarin and all that, the rules are there.
To Geneva Convention.
So I can't use that. Now, if there's nothing in the Geneva Convention,
MX
So-
missile,
you understand,
Star Wars,
and I discover some exotic material or
Star
some,
Wars.
let's say some fantastic,
MX
mysterious rays, you understand, that could make things disappear. Like, for example, they used magnetism and they conducted an experiment using devices called degaussers, which create powerful magnetic fields
You mean
to
pitch
make
bomb?
objects and men disappear.
Disappear?
Yeah.
No, this is fiction. How is it possible?
Experiments were conducted. That now, for instance, you're saying how is it possible?
Okay,
there are a whole
fine.
lot of
This
things.
is speculation. Okay, fine. Like-
Speculation. It can be. You think it is not possible.
Okay, okay, fine.
Feasible.
No, the evidence is very less.
What? Or you think I'm quoting from some? I dreamt or something last night.
But how?
I'm quoting from what I've read.
Okay. Now I want to give you an example. Okay, there was a virus.
a lot of-
There was a virus called Stuxnet.
Here you are. Yeah.
Stuxnet.
Biological warfare.
No, not biological. This is digital warfare, cyber warfare. There was a virus
Yeah,
called
there you
or a worm called Stuxnet. Iran allegedly, who knows whether it's a big hoax or a story or some propaganda. Allegedly, there was a worm that infected the uranium enrichment facility of Iran, where you have centrifuges that spin at a particular RPM. Now, if you were successful in making those spin at a certain higher RPM, then lowering it with respect to time. Like now, say for example, my motorcycle goes at 40 kilometers per hour. It is designed for that optimum performance at that time. So what I just
You told me this. The centrifuges all went out of.
Yeah, I told you this.
AY.
Israel did it.
Don't just say anything, okay?
That's what
How
they
can
said.
you? Who they?
There was news about it.
No, that's all speculation. You mustn't.
Don't say anyone anything.
Cyber war.
Don't accuse anyone of anything.
Unless you're certain.
Yeah. So,
Unless you can prove it.
Yeah, and the fun part of it is no one can prove anything because the worm doesn't leave any traces.
So the
It is-
Chinese
it is-
are doing the same thing.
So it is in fact the perfect crime. Now, how do you classify this under the Geneva
No
Convention?
crime is perfect.
No, it is. means the most perfect that we have seen till date.
Yeah. But
It
no
lea- it
crime
lea-
is perfect.
Yeah, yeah. It leaves no trace. Means that
They
depends
will
how well you
improvements will
execute.
come up.
Because leaves no real world trace. It is just information. And in effect, for it to deploy that weapon, for it to achieve its aim, it requires uh, unknown like carriers. Like for example, if you might not even know that you're infecting your population because you are a carrier. So in the same way, that's why the term virus or worm. You might not know you the worm is present in you also. So what happened is the something called as the air gap between two systems. Now say for example I have
Correct.
a computer and you have a computer. For something to go from my computer to your computer, either I have to physically connect both the computers or some information has to be
You can transmit it
Yeah.
through the air in some manner.
no.
But if there's an air gap-
that's radio or radio transmission. But forget that. If I were to plug in my hard drive to my or a portable storage to my computer, and then that would be introduced to your computer. If there was something on the portable storage that could execute it by itself and infect your computer, so this is how the virus infected the uranium enrichment facility. Allegedly, I don't know if this is a big hoax.
Because there was
And
no
then
connection.
see, I read somewhere that particular virus had exploited 5 zero-day exploits. What does this mean is, say for example, I have a product, I give it to you. I have not assessed it properly. Like when you make a product, you have an environment assessment before selling it in the market. You should know what will happen if it enters the market. What will be the effects on the environment, on the
Okay.
people, and all that.
Marilu is calling you.
And without completing this entirely, if you introduce it into the market, you might see something happening that would have not been anticipated before introducing it. In the same way, say for example, I sell you a computer program. I have not tested it thoroughly. There might be some weakness in the program, and it is very rare, or maybe it is not as common to hear of a person exploiting that program in 5 different manners.
You got a point.
So those are called 5, and it was unheard of before. So there were some companies, some hardware in that uranium enrichment facility which had weaknesses that no one knew about, even including the company itself.
Okay.
So
Point.
a third party adversary
They
used
discovered that.
They discovered that and they used it. And they compromised, say for example, 40%, I'm not sure, 40% of the uranium centrifuge.
Okay. Yes, you made your point. You made your point.
So who decides?
Who
whether-
decide?
Who decides how far is too far? Now the implications of that act. Who decides?
How far is too far will be decided only after the act. That this is too far, it
So
shouldn't go
now,
that far.
was the atom bomb too far? 2. They should have dropped 1 or 2.
The second one is still a question of matter of debate. The second
Why
one.
couldn't they drop it on some place where there was no population, just to show the Japanese that see what we are capable of? Let's just stop fighting. Why they had to drop it on populated areas? Now, don't you think that is moral? There are moral implications to that.
The fact is, even waging war is a moral. There are moral
No, but,
implications. You
No one would
understand?
debate that there were two parties who were contradictory, who were.
The thing is, they had to drop it there so as to, unless the damage inflicted is sizable, they are not going to listen. You understand? It's like, say, you take a
But-
thief, you caught a thief. You understand? And you show him, you see what will happen to you, and you show him you take another thief, and in front of him, you paste the shit out of that guy. You think he's going to listen? Unless he gets a kicking.
But depends who is the thief and what is his motivation.
You understand? So, like that,
If he's willing to.
you're saying drop it in some god-forsaken place.
No,
Japan
just-
will say to hell with you. Yeah?
Just to disclose your capability.
They'll still say to hell with you unless you drop it on his head.
But how do you know that they will say that?
You can't make that assumption.
Okay.
You understand?
Leave it at that. Chalo, bye.
For the time being, then we'll see. No, it's a good topic. The point is very good. You're making a good point. You're making a very good point. You understand? You're making a very good point. But the thing is, it is debatable. You understand? It's not.
They could have dropped one bomb, na? Then watch the reaction. Then
That is why the debate is still ongoing.
So they don't want to disclose their capability. They want to have maximum impact with 2 bombs and then watch what they would happen.
That's why I'm saying it's a very debatable topic. You understand? Point, counterpoint.
So if today someone discovers a new method of destruction, so he can hold the whole world to hostage.
Almost. That's why these Bond movies, no?
Okay, then.
Spectra.
Bye bye.